Relational deposits provoke a crisis. Pastor as worship pastor. The importance of excellence/urgency. Here's the last thing. I do this all the time. I review the assembly line. I think a lot of pastors do not review the assembly line. Let's spend a couple of minutes on the assembly line. Could you even draw the assembly line? Do you know how it works? So this is the ministry. 5 minutes. Super. This is the ministry of Harvest Bible Chapel right here. Okay? And let's divide it into, here's the funnel of people coming in. I'm not even going to get into that. A lot of churches spend a lot of time doing a lot of things trying to create traffic to the funnel. They never really figure out that they ought to spend less time on getting people to the funnel and making what happens on the assembly line great. Okay? So, these are the main parts of the assembly line. Okay? Could you come up here and give this talk? Could you come up here and finish this right now? This part is called a high impact service. Okay? I am on it all the time. On the sermon. How many times am I hate Friday. I have miserable, awful Friday. If you're with me on Friday, you don't want to be with me on Friday. I am so miserable because I don't even like studying, and I have to do it every week. And there's 12,000 people coming to hear this message, and it better be better than last week because they're bringing their friends. And I feel that pressure like you cannot believe it. And I know that a lot of you do too. But not just the sermon. The rest of the service. Okay? All of it. On it all the time. Second thing. Assimilation. Okay? We have an assimilation process. I don't even know exactly what it is anymore, but I'll just tell you the people who work there are really afraid to get it wrong. They're really afraid. One of the elders said to me a few years ago, do you understand, James, that some of the staff's afraid of you? So what popped into my mind when they said that was, choose the problems you want to manage. I'd rather go around to people who are really unnecessarily afraid of me and be loving and kind and sweet toward them so they can be like, not as bad as I thought. As opposed to, recently, a couple years ago now, one of our elders met with one of our key leaders and said, we want you to be James, and we want James to be you. And the person was like, what do you mean? He said, well, when you come walking down the hall, you're supposed to be the boss. When you come walking down the hall, everybody's like, we're going for lunch. When James comes walking down the hall, everybody's like, get your head down, you better get back to work. And they said, we want him to be that guy. And I want to be that guy too, by the way, because I've been the other guy for long enough. I've done my time. But the fact is, someone has to be willing to be that guy. And part of your willingness to serve is getting out of the popularity contest and getting into I'm called to lead this. I want to be loving and kind and transparent and teachable and sweet and all the rest of it. But I don't want to sit around and eat Skittles for the rest of my life, okay? I want to get something done. And so I'm on this, unbelievable, something that really blessed me. I just want to affirm our own team here. We had, unbelievably, 18,575 people at our Easter service this year. That's a lot more than we normally have, which means that there were several thousand people there that would have filled out the friendship register as a visitor. So I never even think about it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All of a sudden, it comes in my mind. Well, I bet that's just crushing our assimilation process. So I called Pastor Rick on the phone, who has all this stuff under him with various staff and so on. I was so encouraged when he came back and said, the letters will be out by the end of Thursday. We've recruited other volunteers. All the phone calls are going to be made by Friday. It's all in place. They just took it up by about 8 notches. They were not going to let a week close without that done. And if I had to come around, and I heard, because he's worked with me for 20 years. I mean, that's ridiculous to even say that. He feels the same way I do. The value is reproduced in him. I didn't do anything. He had it, and the people underneath him had it, because they'd gotten it over a long period of time. This can never be broken. Whatever your assimilation process is that leads to the party with the pastors and the newcomers reception or the membership class and getting people into small groups, that has to be well-oiled and awesomely working every time. And when my church was smaller, I did it personally. I walked away every weekend with a list of names in my Bible that I'd written down. Get with him this week. That guy's cool. you ever meet two people on one Sunday morning, you're like, that guy ain't going to help us at all, he's going to make us crazy. That guy can be a thing. Anybody ever have that feeling? You know both people when you meet them. You're like, someone else definitely planted in that field because I'm going to be in a position to harvest something huge. I put nothing there. Like, get that guy and pull him in and give him a compelling mission. Go meet with him this week. And then the other guy, pass that guy off. But everyone through the assimilation process, okay? And then small groups, the quality and the, look at life-changing and life-giving. Every small group experience needs to be life-changing and life-giving. And everything that you can learn here at Harvest University about small groups is 20 years of working on, not silly little, if you could be a fruit, what fruit would you be small groups? Okay? All right. Let's all pick a color. Call out a color that describes your emotions today. All right, well, that might play in Silly Church, but that doesn't play in Harvest World. We want life-changing, life-giving small group experience, and we're always on that all the time. And then the last thing, of course, is work for Christ. We call this worship Christ, walk with Christ, work for Christ. That's the assembly line. And it doesn't matter whether it's the children's ministry portion of this or the student ministry version of this, because it's all the same. The women's ministry version of this or the young adult ministry version of this, all right? That's the main assembly line. And sometimes I am on it. And sometimes I wonder if all of our senior pastors are.